So in this project, you will be learning to develop a simple calculator. You will create the user interface of it as seen here, and you will be doing the event handling part and the API discussions, and we'll be doing it in a very practical manner. So this is the coding you will be learning in this project, the coding, and this will be the output. So in the output you will enter, you'll be able to enter the numbers, the user, and then the user will be able to click the plus, multiply, clear, and do the other buttons as well as exit. So we are doing this in a very practical manner. So let's see how to do it now. Let's go and do the practical. So to start first, most important thing is you have to start by creating the GUI. So I'm going to quickly create the GUI. This is just the second example we are doing with GUI. So I'm going to quickly create the GUI, right? So for that, I'm going to start my NetBeans Apache NetBeans. I'm going to do it from the scratch once again, right? So that you can see like a revision of the previous lecture as well, very fast, right? So important things first. This is the GUI exercise 2, right? So let me example 1 GUI. These are our lesson 2, right? So let me make a new project, right? A Java project inside my preferred location, right? D. So lesson 2. Inside lesson 2, it's going to be, yeah, inside lesson 2, right? Lesson 2, and this is my project is going to be example 1. No, it's, yeah, example 1 of lesson 2, right? Example 1 GUI. So it's, I should say this other way, right? X lesson 2 example 1. I think that's the best way. So in fact GUI should come to the first, right? So it's GUI lesson 2 example 1. This is a better way, right? Okay, so I got GUI lesson 2 and this is the example 1 of it, right? So let me click finish, and then inside my, I need to create a class, right? So right click, new Java class. I would call it the same name, right? Finish. So I got a class. Now I should write my main method, right? So just to save the time, because we did one of the exercises earlier, I'm going to get the main method from that. So I just want to save my time, so we typed it earlier, now you know. So I'm going to put it here, right? So I got my main method and I don't want these comments at the top, right? So now recall your previous knowledge, right? So you need a you need a window. So now you remember it's JFrame, right? So very quickly, so you remember, so you have to say Java API JFrame, right? So just giving you a quick revision of what we did in the previous lesson. So JFrame, so you need to create an object of it, but before that you need to import, right? javax.swing. So you have to say import, right? javax.swing dot JFrame, right? Right, and then you create object of JFrame, right? So we did this in last class. This is the basic. Then you can say obj window 1. Let us say my first window, new JFrame, right? And then immediately you have to set the bounds, right? So immediately you set the bounds, meaning the size of the window, right? So I would say I want it from at the beginning xy00 beginning of the screen or the desktop, and something like this, right? And maybe height of 400, right? And a title, isn't it, right? Obj dot set title. So we did this in the last previous lesson. So let us say calculator window, right? And then very important, I told you in the last lesson, so you have to look at the previous lesson. If you missed that before this video, look at lesson 1, because this is lesson 2, right, of GUI, right? Look at GUI lesson 1 before you do this, very important. In that I told very clearly that you need to create a layout. So in this case I'm going to use a grid layout because that's the plan, right? So let us look at that Java API grid layout. So what is grid layout? Also in the previous lesson I told you the grid layout has rows and columns. So you can specify when you create a grid layout, you specify So let's look at this, the rows and the columns. So I'm looking at the API. If you are new to referring the API, look at one of our previous videos, just a small video about how to use the API. You know, like what I'm looking at, you have to understand this, right? So for you to understand that, look at the previous video. So when you create a grid layout into the constructor, you will be passing the rows and the columns. So for the grid layout constructor, I would like to get how many rows. So like how many rows and how many columns. So I would say, okay, I need to make, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an object of grid layout. So look at the previous video for you to get idea of why you need a layout, right? So obj will say grid layout. Obj means like just object, you know. You can put any name. If you want, you can put X here, right? But I prefer to put something like obj grid layout, right? If not, put X, what it is. So new, right? Grid layout, right? And then I said I prefer to put the rows and the columns. So let us say I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Say I want 7 rows. Just give me example. And say I want 2 columns, right? You will see why I need 7, because I'm going to add few things down. Now, so because I need couple of rows, you know, in my screen. That's it. So I got a grid layout, and then what I have to do is this grid layout object. I have to assign it, attach it to the window. So look at the previous video to of this lesson 1, this lesson 2, to understand why you do this. So you have to say set layout, right? So set layout, and then you pass the grid layout object, right? That's how you do it. All good. Now you need to create the components, right? So you need the components. So I need labels. So for labels, the class is JLabel, right? So you saw it in the previous video. So JLabel. Then I'm going to open a few more. Then I need text field. So then there's a class called JTextField, right? So if you don't know about these classes, you don't know to search it. So you have to do a different search in Google asking how to create a Java text field, how to create a button, likewise, right? Then you will see that these tutorials will say use JLabel for labels. You will see they will say then you will come here and then you will search for the specific class in the API. That is how you use the API. You may not directly you may not be able to directly use the API because API is not a tutorial actually. Remember, API is a reference. So if you are it's a technical reference, API. So you may need a little bit of Google search before coming to the API. So then JLabel, say LBL, say number 1, because it's a calculator, right? I want a label. So I'm going to say J new JLabel. And once again, this is I'm doing with coding, right? But after this, we will do another video about without creating it using code. You can use some like you do in a .NET application. You can drag and drop labels. You can drag and drop buttons in Java, right? That we do as another lecture after this, right? But we do it like this first because you need to understand very clearly what's happening behind scenes. So once again, JLabel, you have to import. So now if you look at JLabel, it's in javax.swing, right? So so I will import, okay, import say javax.swing dot, you know, JLabel, right? Right. So JLabel, right? Then how many labels do I need? Say number 1, number 2, and answer. So I want 3 of them. So I will say LBL number 1, number 2. I will call this as my answer, right? Okay, LBL answer. I want to display the answer. So in front of each label, I need a text box. So for text box, the class is JTextField, right? Again in javax.swing package. So what I have to do is I have to go and import javax.swing.jTextField, right? JTextField. So it's a text field, right? You saw something called text area. That is if you want, like say you want to input address with multiple lines. So then it's JText area. But if you want just a number, it's a text field, single line, right? Then I need 3 text boxes, right? So I will say JTextField txt text box. We'll say txt. Let me call it as txt number 1. Yeah, that sounds nice. So new create object, right? We are creating objects of these standard classes. So all keep in mind all these are standard classes, so that it creates labels and JText. So you don't have to create them, right? Because they are standard classes. So txt number 1, txt number 2, then the text box to display the answer. And then I need buttons, right? So then once again you need J button in javax.swing. So import javax.swing and right, so J button, right? So import and guys j button, right? Okay, and then create the button objects. That's what you do now, right? So you create the button object, say button btn, say add, right? Add button, new j button, right? So okay, and then right, so add say subtract, multiply, divide, say clear and exit buttons, right? So I got those buttons. So add, subtract, to subtract, multiply and divide, right? So the divide button, and then the clear button, right? The clear button, and then the say the exit button, right? Cool, 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 good, 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 great. Now first things first, so after creating the labels and the objects, you need to call the methods of the label, right? So you have to set the text what you want to display. Say you want to display it as say number one, right, of the labels, right? So you just copy them and say number two for label number two, and you got the LBL answer what I created earlier. So for that you will just say okay, this is the answer. For the text boxes you want them to be empty, so you don't have to do anything. But for the buttons you will have to again say what you want to display as the label, right? So set text, you want this as say plus button, let's put some symbols like that, right? Sounds good, good, good. Okay, so just paste it and then say this is the subtract button what you created above, this is say the multiply button what you created above, this is say the divide button which you created above, right? So the divide button you created above, and then this is the clear button you created above, and this is going to be the exit button you created above. So then the subtract button symbol is this, multiply button symbol is this, you can call this as divide, then you want to display here as clear, and you want to display as exit. So what's next? What we did in the previous tutorial, right? In the previous lesson one we did. So what should we do now? Now basically you have the stuff, so you have to now add them to the window. That's what you have to do now, right? So I prefer to have this at the top because it's important, right? So before anything else I prefer to do this, right? Okay, and the grid layout should be at the top, right? So I prefer that part, to be kept here. In fact, yeah, that's fine. And then now to the window you have to keep on adding your components. So we did this in the last exercise, right? So say I want to add the label first, right? LBL number one. So what happens is you got in your layout you got 7 rows and 2 columns. So when you add, you are adding each row wise. So I will put in front so it's easy to understand like this. So then you add the text box, right? So txt number one. So this is the pattern, right? So it's you fill row by row, right? So this is the first row. You got 7 rows and 2 columns in the grid layout, right? So what you do is you add row by row. So you will be adding like this, right? Something like this, right? So how many rows do you have? Actually 1 2 3 4 5 rows would be enough, right? I, yeah, no, six would be enough. 6, let's see. So LBL number 1, then LBL number 2, and the txt number 2, and then you want the label answer, and here you want the text box answer. Then what you want is the buttons, right? So the btn add, and so the here btn subtract, btn multiply, btn divide. Yeah, I think that's enough. So the btn add, then the button subtract, then the button. So these objects you have created above, right? The multiply. So I'm referring to all the objects. See, LBL1, txt number 1, btn add. So basically I'm referring to the objects, right? Btn multiply, and this add, sub, multiply, btn divide, and this I would like to be btn clear, right? Btn clear, and I want this to be the btn exit, right? So remember, these are all the objects you created above. Once again I show you, right? See the btn exit, so they are objects. Okay, all good. And then in the previous video we said that what you have to do now is you have to display the window. So for that we discussed, you have to say set visible true. That's it. Let's run this, right? Before that I need to compile this. So run, I will build the project, So if all goods, I should see a calculator window now. If all looks good, so let me run this and see, right? Let me run and see, right? So I'm running. Let's see. Awesome, wonderful, guys. See the beauty of this, right? I got my calculator. This is LBL1, this is the text field, LBL2 and text field, LBL3 and text field, right? Awesome, awesome, guys, awesome. And probably I would like it to be a little smaller, right? Not this large, right? So that I have to control. One more thing, when I click the close button, if you remember the previous video, it doesn't exit. So recall your knowledge of the previous video, right? So what did we do? If not, you look at our lesson 1 of GUI, right? So what I did was, if you can remember, I said, if not, look at the previous video, guys. Set default close operation, and from JFrame, if you remember, I put exit on close, right? You have to look at the previous video if you don't know, if you don't remember this. And one more thing, I want it looked a little too large for me, so I would like to bring it small. Let's run and see now. Okay, let's see what will be the output. Okay, looks good. Good. Yeah, awesome. Great, guys. Only thing now, I have the GUI, but events are not working, as you can see, right? So let's start with writing code for the exit button, right?